I know you don't love the teacher to have this information, so that when things happen, or when you're going through a hard time and need extra time on an assignment, or we need something to happen, this is laying the groundwork,
Yeah.
and finally, I think by the time she was a junior, she was able to self-advocate enough, in certain areas. And honestly, we did have a 504 plan that addressed the anxiety, that she experienced related to her death loss. So there were also some more official channels. That was, honestly, I had such a hard time when she was really struggling with the anxiety and depression around grief. Like, that formal document was literally the only way I could get some of the teachers or the school to take it seriously. Because I'd talked with people, I'd met with people, some of the understanding still was not there. And so, if your child's really struggling, in a way that is kind of a diagnosable mental health issue at that moment, I say, again, I was actually a lawyer who first suggested that to me. I was talking to them about something else. And he said, well, you can get a 504. And I'm like, but there's nothing wrong with my child. Why would I need a 504?
What is a
But
504? What is that?
now it's, it's honestly a variation on a special education plan, but
Okay.
that can address, if a child has special physical needs in a school building. In this case, because her anxiety at that point was so extreme, she had a hard time staying in school. She
Yeah.
could get close to a panic attack. So, that document, you have to work with, a therapist, a medical doctor to say, this is a real diagnosed condition that this child
Yeah.
is experiencing right now. A 504 can cover a lot of conditions, from, again, extra time for taking tests, extra time for assignments,
Okay.
quiet spaces. The student is really struggling, they're allowed to, inform the teacher that they need to go hang out in the school counselor's office for 10 minutes for a reset. There can be, you meet with a variety of officials at the school to kind of look at, what are appropriate accommodations based on what's going on. Again, especially if your child is struggling with particular things, mental health diagnosis that's coming with this. And again, that's a whole separate podcast we could have a discussion on, is grief a diagnosis? Is it
Ah,
a pathology? Is it a normal state of being? There are a lot of feelings about this. I tend to be very much a pragmatist. I think grief is normal and a normal response. I think also it can trigger, clinical level anxiety responses, depression
yeah.
responses, that, yes, that's a clinical diagnosis, but that's normal for what has
Yeah.
happened to this
Yeah.
child. So I tend to think, what is it that I as a parent need to do to help them, be able to do their best to get through the school day most helpfully and with the least amount of stress. So having that document, especially in the face of, when there's that occasional educator who kind of looks at you when you're doing the back to school, grief story rodeo,
Yeah.
it's just another tool that I had to legitimize what was happening with her sometimes. And again, not all the time, but kids regrieve, anniversaries happen, different
Yeah.
milestones happen, stuff can pop up at any time along the spectrum. So just I always felt like having laid the groundwork for that conversation,
That's
sometimes if she was
fantastic.
having a particularly bad day, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so
So
much for sharing
it's another
that. Like,
tool.
yes, it's another tool that people
Yeah.
can use. Thank you so much for sharing that because I know a lot of our listeners are struggling in that department. They just don't know what else they can do, you know. So that's fantastic. Thank you.